What's the worst thing you've ever been accused of while being completely innocent? Bank robbery. I was early for my first day as a gas jockey in a new city. I was across the street from the gas station, digging through my backpack when suddenly somebody told me to show them my hands. I was totally confused to look up and see two RCMP officers. Hands on their sidearms. They didn't draw, or anything. Turns out there had been a bank robbery around the corner a few minutes before and my gas jockey uniform and backpack matched the description. They looked inside my bag, containing my brown bag lunch and a paperback. And then they were gone in a flash. Apparently, the guy didn't get caught until after another bank robbery in the same area. My first week of high school. I got called into the office because rumors were flying around that I was planning to blow up the school and had already rigged it with explosives. This was obviously news to me. Then about a year later, I had my wisdom teeth removed and missed a week of school. When I finally came back, my friends had to explain the freaked out looks I kept getting from classmates. Apparently a boy who regularly picked at me had vanished from school about the same time I did. And the rumor going around was that I had killed him, eaten him, and then been arrested. Everybody was surprised to see me because they'd spent the past week telling each other about how I was in jail and he was in my stomach. Folks sure make up weird rumors. The boy was fine. FYI. He'd just been suspended. Edit. Just woke up. And since this got some traction, I guess I owe everybody some explanations. In fairness to the other kids, I was that weirdo from an abusive home who cracked strange jokes to cope with life. And ya know, resting bitch face? Well, I had. Resting enraged face. I assume a side effect of being a parental punching bag. And in extra fairness to the other kids, I could usually track the rumors back to something stupid I'd said. The explosives misunderstanding had to do with old middle school jokes about the gas nozzles in the science labs, mixed with an overheard conversation on the bus that morning where I was arranging to sell extra firecrackers to a guy who only lived a few dirt lanes from where I live. And of course I never brought any of that to school. To explain the really crazy rumor, I have to tell a bonus story. Not long after that first week of high school, my home life went entirely bonkers and I had to move to another state. I was there for almost a year before circumstances changed again and I had to come back. But I felt it was okay, as I'd already been to that high school previously, knew where everything was, and even had friends. So my first day back, I got my lunch tray, found a table of my friends, and went over to sit with them. But like I say, weird home life, weird sense of humor. So when everyone at the table looked up, surprised I was back, I said, "What? I swear I didn't kill anybody last night." They all freaked. Eventually my best friend calmed everyone down enough to stop screaming, and she explained to my entirely baffled and confused face that the night before, an elderly couple had been murdered in their home. Small town, very little crime. My family didn't watch morning news, so I had no idea. I swear, I was just cracking one of my usual jokes. It just hit with crazy timing. I promise I'm better now. Turns out, a lot of years away from an abusive childhood, and learning about trust, can heal a lot of damage. I helped a friend of my mother move when I had just turned 18 for no pay, and this lady accused me of stealing one of her guns. I booked it straight to the police department to explain the situation. When she tried to report me, they told her she was crazy. They already spoke to me, and that criminals that steal guns don't go directly to the police. Anabolic steroids. I was a high jumper on my college's track and field team, and we would have to do urine tests every so often. Well, one of mine came back from the lab positive for anabolic steroids, which give women who take them strong manly-like features. I was 5'8", and 125 pounds. Luckily the lab broke the tests into 2 samples and eventually tested the second sample, showing it was clean. Apparently the lab had a contaminated batch of test tubes, and the company had to fly reps into my college to apologize to me and a baseball player this both happened to. It was a scary couple weeks. Had just moved to a new school in 5th grade. Was never great at making new friends. So I thought I'd sugar them up by bringing sugar mixed with Kool-Aid, something that was popular at my old school. Who doesn't love a bunch of 10-year-olds licking their fingers and dipping them in a baggie of sugar? Apparently, an older kid had given several first graders heroin during this time and it got pegged on me. I was removed from class. Police came. I cried like a bitch because I didn't understand why they thought my grape Kool-Aid was heroin. I kept telling them to taste it. The principal finally did and realized I was telling the truth. Awesome first week of school. Drugs. Shockingly enough, my parents' divorce made me act out at 9 years old. And I kept distracting other kids in class. My mom was convinced it was because I was doing drugs and yanked hair out of my head and made me get blood tested. They found nothing. Because I was 9 years old. Accused of breaking a girl's arm on a bounce house at a local fair when I was like 8 yo. Had been on there only a few seconds. Was just doing my thing and I heard screaming. We all stopped. The girl had an obviously broken arm and pointed at me and said, "He did it, with her non-broken arm." Of course. Dude in charge kicked me off. No refund. I found my family and explained it to them and my uncle said he was recording me on his camcorder when it happened. 1982. The camcorder was the size of a briefcase and ran on VHS tapes, but we had no way to play it back while there. Went home. Plugged the thing into the VCR and played it back, absolute 100% that it wasn't me. But then I got a life lesson in how being right doesn't mean you win. My dad pointed out we'd have to walk 15 minutes back to the bounce house and argue with them. With no way of showing them the video unless they sent someone to our house to watch it. All to get the 10p that I paid for 5 minutes on the bounce house. It would have been, at best, a Pyrrhic victory. Most likely they'd tell us to piss off. I was accused of destroying a window at school by dropping a rock from a higher floor. Interrogated by the principal. Parents were called. Friends had to fund the repairs. Bullied on the bus. It fucking sucked. Found out who it was 2 years later. But by then nobody cared. In 3rd grade, one walked to a convenience store with $2. And spent 20 minutes trying to decide what candy to get, picking things up. And putting them back. The old lady clerk accused me of stealing and said to never come back. That was a bit problematic given it was the only gas station in my small town. And I've moved back and been living here for the last 15 years. My father was accused of murdering the neighbor's dog and disposing it at a remote beach. When I was a kid we had a rocky relationship with one of the neighbors because they had a yappy dog that they took very poor care of. It drove the whole street mad, but for some reason it never got taken away by animal control. A few years ago my parents moved to another part of town. Afterwards, Dad worked on the old house to get it ready to sell. One day he was on the driveway when the neighbors left in their car. They made eye contact. Then, when the neighbors returned, their dog was inexplicably missing. They instantly accused Dad of sneaking over and butchering the dog because he had enough of it. He tried to explain that an animal control van had briefly come through the street shortly after they left. But they weren't having a bar of it. They were so convinced he had done something they started a massive social media campaign to pressure him into admitting it. Including invading all the local community groups and outing him. They even went so far as to drive an hour out of town to the beach we often go to in the weekends to put up posters. It was wild, stressful and stupid. It only stopped after we picked up a lawyer and sent a cease and desist letter threatening to take them to court for public defamation. The dog was never found and apparently they have 2 new ones now. This was also the same family that found someone's lost cat and decided to keep it. I got kicked out of a sit-down restaurant during my company Christmas party for doing drugs in the bathroom. When the manager told me to leave and that they don't allow that behavior here. My boss and 20+ other employees vouched for me that I had not left the table for 2+ hours. The entire duration of the party. The manager called my boss an idiot and made me leave. No one in my company has been back since. Drugs. When I was in high school I had a very monotonous voice that my parents thought was fake, and anytime we were out they would ask someone to tell me what I sound like because they thought that if I was embarrassed enough I would talk normally. Instead it made me talk less and me shut out some of my friends in my life. When they realized I wasn't talking they jumped to conclusions and accused me of doing drugs. What really made them think I was doing drugs was when I lost $20 at my school's picnic. They were constantly counting my money to see if they can prove I was doing drugs and realized that I was missing $40 and told me to tell them what happened to it. I explained to them that I had a picnic at school and brought $40 with me but lost half of it. They said my story didn't add up, so they started to rummage through my backpack and room anytime I wasn't at home and would ask for the names of my friends and anyone that I was talking to so that they could run background checks on them. This is tame compared to others in this thread, but it's one that has stuck with me for ages. When I was really little, around 6, my aunt was babysitting me. My sweet dog was shedding fur. My aunt accused me of cutting her fur. She had me across her knee saying she wouldn't spank me if I admitted it. I was sobbing uncontrollably because I loved my dog. We were the same age and she was like a second mom, and would never do that to her. My mom came home not long after and I do remember her being livid. Despite my issues with my mom, she never once laid a hand on me. My mom couldn't believe that her sister never comprehended that animal sheds fur in clumps. 8,000 odd worth of credit card fraud. I was 12 and my parents got a call asking for me. Scariest shit ever.